Hello, everyone. Once again, this is Gerald Weathersby with Politically Speaking, and today is July 1st, 2013. And for this broadcast, we would like to discuss a topic that is very important and right now is receiving a lot of press, a lot of attention from the press and from the media, nationally and internationally, and that is surveillance. And let's just briefly touch upon some of the latest news. Vladimir Putin, the Russian premier, has said that Russia will not extradite Snowden, Ed Snowden, the NSA leaker, back to the United States. Also, the EU, the European Union members are apparently, so they say, upset with the United States about our alleged spying on the European Union, which look, there's absolutely no way that this could come as a shock to them, or that they didn't know that the United States, although they are our allies, that we don't spy on each other. But it is at the same time still somewhat embarrassing. It is forcing the president and his members, the members of his cabinet, etc., to answer, some pretty tough questions. So we'll see how and where that goes. But more importantly, we want to talk about in-house surveillance, and that is surveillance of the American people. And what we wanted to start with is something that is very basic. Most Americans don't see this as illegal, unconstitutional in any way, shape, or form. Most Americans have in some way, shape, or form had experience with this situation or this type of surveillance, and that is um, traffic tickets, namely speeding tickets. So let's start there. And let me start by saying the fact of the matter is any sort of unwarranted surveillance of American citizens is illegal and protected by the Constitution. You have to remember the framers of the Constitution, these were free men by in the purest sense of the word. They wanted very limited government. And today we have slowly but surely, we, the American people, have allowed the federal, state, and local governments to to chip away at our freedoms, freedoms from being surveyed, unwarranted surveillance. So let's just look at a big one, speeding tickets. Because in order for an officer to give you a speeding ticket, obviously he's watching you. He is an agent of the state or of the town or of the city, and he is watching you. And he is watching you at the behest of the city or the state. For what reason? Now, any politician will tell you that speed limits are in place for public safety. And that is just absolute nonsense. Let's use the example of the speed limit increase from 55 miles per hour to 65 miles per hour. Now, when this was being debated in the House and in the Senate, you had one party saying that the other party would have blood on their hands, because if the speed limit was raised from 55 to 65, there would be unlimited number of roadside deaths and casualties. And the research, the facts Since the speed limit was raised from 65 to 65, the facts are that fatalities, road fatalities, highway fatalities have actually decreased. Have decreased. And as a matter of fact, in states where they've actually gone above 65 to 75, 80, you even have some states, and from my understanding, where there's not a posted speed limit. And the data comes back the same. There in not one place have we found an increase in fatalities because of the increase in the posted speed limit. So where does the posted speed limit come from? Where did 55 miles per hour ever even come from? Who was the genius that said 55 miles per hour is the maximum speed limit for safe travel on an American highway? Well, the truth of the matter is it did not come from um, any comprehensive study. Certainly not from a group of engineers or people who would be qualified to make that sort of recommendation. It's just something that was thrown out there by a politician and generally accepted and therefore passed upon to the American people. Well, the truth is, the American people, based on the Constitution, we have the right to travel without persecution, without surveillance. That is our American right given to us in the Constitution. Traveling is and always will be a very important part of American culture. And so, based on that idea, the federal government came up with what is known as the MUTUD, and that is the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Let me say that again, the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And what that says is any state implementing a traffic control device, such as a speed limit, must do so based upon sound scientific research. So in other words, if you're coming down the highway and the posted speed limit is 65 miles per hour, you get pulled over and given a ticket, you have the right to ask for the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control devices. You have the right to ask for that, request that manual. Understand this, since this manual came into existence and was put into place by the federal government, not one state has used it to implement their traffic control devices. Not one. So what that means is every speeding ticket that is given out is frankly unconstitutional and therefore illegal. State, local legislatures, even the federal legislatures, congressmen and senators, just because a law is passed and signed into law, that does not mean that it is constitutional. And if it is not constitutional, it is therefore illegal. I challenge you to look up more about this topic. Google, you know, constitutionality of the constitutionality of speeding tickets, speed enforcement, and you will come up with um, all kinds of information, but you will certainly come up with actual court cases that went before the Supreme Court, whereby the Supreme Court said the speeding law is unconstitutional. For example, in the state of Tennessee, the city of Oak Ridge versus Diana Brown. And that's exactly what the Supreme Court came back with. The speeding laws, or the posted speed limits, were deemed unconstitutional. Now, most Americans would think, well, that's absolutely amazing. I mean, even myself, for years, I figured, well, I accepted a police officer pulling me over. Do you know how fast you were going? Do you know what the posted speed limit is? And all this time, I just took it as, well, the speed limit is a speed limit. But the truth of the matter is that is unwarranted surveillance. Why are you watching how fast I'm going? I have the right to go to travel. And unless there is according to the United States government and the Supreme Court, unless there is valid proven scientific cause for a posted speed limit, then it is unconstitutional. But why don't we, the people, why don't we ever hear about this? Why don't we ever talk about this? Because the powers that be don't feel like we can handle that sort of freedom. Most politicians would tell you, oh God, if we took the speed limit signs down, I mean, what would happen? People would go crazy. You would have all kinds of deaths and all sorts of problems. Now, I'm not saying that I advocate absolutely no speed limit, but certainly there should be more research, more attention given to the subject. And before, Americans are paying multi-millions and millions and millions of dollars to these local state and local governing municipalities to keep them afloat and to pay their salaries so that they can buy new police cars and new radar guns and take trips all around the country and all around the world and build new jails and new city halls and new this and new that. That's where they get the money from to do this type of stuff. And so we will continue this conversation on surveillance part 2. So, and as we transition from speeding tickets and the fact that police, law enforcement, and their want and they feel the need to survey us as we are driving down the highway, which is our constitutional right. They have the want and need to pull us over for breaking a law that is absolutely an unfounded law. It's unfounded. The absurdity of pulling someone over for doing 75 miles per hour in a 65 mile per hour zone. I personally have been pulled over for doing 75 miles per hour in a 65 mile per hour zone. And the absurdity of it is that the speed limit is for reasons of safety, public safety, as they say. I typically travel at night. And so the time when I was pulled over, I was literally the only car on the highway. So who was I putting at danger, at risk, if I'm one of the only cars on the highway? So again, it just the absurdity of it. And again, these are things that we need to talk about. We need to stop allowing ourselves to be doormats for the federal, state, and local government. Thank you, and we will continue this conversation in Surveillance Part 2.